So when you think of modern wrestling, the huge characters, the wild drama, the whole spectacle, your brain probably jumps straight to the 1980s, right? Hulk Hogan, Macho Man. But what if I told you the real blueprint? The actual DNA for everything we see today was cooked up decades earlier. We're talking about the 1950s, right when that little box called television first started glowing in everybody's living room.
And it really all kicked off with this one simple, absolutely brilliant idea. This was the mantra of the guy who, you could argue, started it all, Gorgeous George. He got it. He knew that in this new world of TV, the character you were playing was every bit as important as the wrestling moves you knew.
Now, to really get how big of a deal this was, you've got to understand what wrestling was like before television. I mean, for most of the guys, it was not glamorous at all. It was a tough, low-paying, town-to-town grind.
Yeah, most guys were working for the door. So what does that even mean? Well, it means the promoter would take all the ticket money and only give like 30 or 40% of it to be split among all the wrestlers on the show. So if you're the first match of the night, you're walking away with a tiny little sliver of an already small pie. No contracts, no guarantees, nothing.
And this just drives it home. There's this legendary story of a huge show in LA that pulled in $100,000. That's massive money for the time. And the guys in the opening matches, they supposedly walked away with $12.50. I mean, come on, that's a brutal way to make a living.
And then, bam, everything changed. The television wasn't just some new piece of furniture. It was the single biggest game changer the wrestling business had ever, and maybe has ever, seen.
You see, in the early days, TV networks were just desperate for stuff to put on the air. They needed programming that was cheap, easy to film, and filled up time. Well, hello wrestling. It was perfect. All the action is in one spot, and it looked great on those tiny black and white screens. All of a sudden, this created a whole new world of money and opportunity.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Check this out. A promoter in Chicago named Fred Kohler completely flipped the script. He saw that the real money was coming from TV, not just tickets. So instead of that old 30–40% cut for the talent, he started giving them 60% of the gate. Suddenly, even a guy in the first match could make $200 a night. That was insane money back then.
So what happens when there's real, serious money to be made? People get creative, really creative. It wasn't just enough to be a good wrestler anymore. Now the goal was to create a character, a gimmick that the TV audience at home would never forget. And just like that, the creative floodgates were busted wide open.
And the first character type that really took over this new medium was the villain, the heel as they call him. These guys weren't just opponents. They were characters that were specifically designed to make you hate their guts.
And the absolute king, the master of the villains, was Gorgeous George. Now, he wasn't a huge guy, he wasn't physically intimidating, but he was an absolute genius when it came to psychology. He knew that the match started the second he walked out, and he could get an entire arena screaming at him before he even stepped into the ring.
I mean, just listen to this entrance. It was pure theater. First, his butler, Jeffries, would come out and literally spray the ring with perfume to, purify it. Then Jeffries would roll out a red carpet for him. George would strut down to the ring in these incredible robes, flicking gold-plated bobby pins into the crowd. And before the match could even start, the ref would go to check him for weapons, and he'd scream, "Get your filthy hands off me!" The crowd would go absolutely nuts. The match hadn't even started.
And George was just the tip of the iceberg. The 50s created this whole gallery of amazing villains. You had your foreign menace types like Mr. Moto, who played on post-World War II fears. You had the unbelievably gutsy gimmick of Karl von Hess, a U.S. Navy vet who played a goose-stepping Nazi for instant bad guy heat. And then you just had pure chaos, like Wild Bull Curry, who made you genuinely fear for the good guy's life. Each one was perfectly designed to push the audience's buttons.
Of course, a great villain is only great if he has a great hero to fight. So, TV also created these new templates for the good guy, the babyface, giving everybody at home someone they could really root for.
And two main types really popped up. On one hand, you had your Vern Gagne, the clean-cut, all-American hero. He was a legit college champion, an Olympian. His appeal was that he was real. Then you had a guy like Antonino Rocca. He was an acrobat, a high-flying showman whose wild, athletic style was practically invented for the television screen.
And then you had Bobo Brazil. In the era of segregation, what this man did was just incredible. He wasn't some sideshow act, he was a main event superstar, period. His popularity got so huge that promoters had no choice but to break down racial barriers and feature him at the top of the card, making him one of the very first black wrestlers to become a true household name.
So here's the thing. All these characters, the flashy bad guys, the all-American heroes, the high flyers, the brawlers, they weren't just a fad. No, they were laying down the foundation. This was the blueprint that pretty much all of professional wrestling would follow for decades to come.
And if you want to know just how far that blueprint reached, just listen to this. The influence of this era went way beyond the wrestling ring. One night, a 19-year-old boxer named Cassius Clay went to a wrestling show. He watched Gorgeous George work the crowd into a frenzy, and he had this huge light bulb moment. He saw 15,000 people paying their hard-earned money just on the hope of seeing this loudmouth get beat up.
Later on, Gorgeous George actually gave that young boxer, the man who would become Muhammad Ali, this exact advice. He told him, "A lot of people will pay to see someone shut your mouth." He basically taught the future GOAT how to be a star. The DNA of Muhammad Ali's whole persona, you can trace it right back to a pro wrestler from the 1950s.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? The spectacle, the big characters, the way they blur the lines between what's real and what's performance. When you really start looking, you can see the fingerprints of this golden age of wrestling all over the entertainment we watch today. You just gotta know where to look.